Bonjour mes amis, cette fois nous allons parler de parler. This time we're going to talk about talking. Let's take a look at some people, some very young French people, talking or not talking as the case may be.
Hugo, c'est pour toi.
Salut Hugo. Alors il paraît que tu voulais me dire quelque chose. C'est Juliette à la récré qui m'a dit que tu voulais me dire un truc.
Je voulais juste te dire que... bon, bah, il faut que je te laisse, hein. Je dois y aller. Salut.
Maline Visio, c'est mieux de se voir quand on se parle. France Télécom.
Of course, what Hugo has written on his hand is je t'aime, which in this context means I love you. So until he resorts to writing on his hand, he's actually talking to the little girl. I could say this way, Hugo parle à la fille, or Hugo talks to the girl. Let's look at how the verb parler works.
Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue sur Coffee Break French. We're here today in the metro in Paris and I'm going to be telling you about how to conjugate a verb. As you already know, there are 6 parts that we've been learning. We've got the I part, the you part, the he part, the she part, the we part, the you part, and then the they part, and the they part. I think we'll use these passengers, you don't think? Non, bien sûr que non. Ok. Alors, on va utiliser parler, le verbe parler, qui veut dire bien sûr, to speak. Donc, je parle, tu parles, il parle, elle parle, nous parlons, pardon, vous parlez, il parle, elle parle. Allez, on va refaire, ok? Alors, je parle, tu parles, il parle, elle parle, nous parlons, pardon, vous parlez, il parle, elle parle. Okay? One thing, okay? What happens if I'm talking about these 2 people here, a male and a female at the same time? Well, we need to use the il plural form, the ILS form. Even though there's a female involved as well, we need to use the il form. So we would say, il parle français. Vous parlez français, n'est-ce pas? D'accord. Alors, au revoir et bonne continuation.
To see the verb parler in your online textbook, go to Chapter 2, Grammaire, and then click on 2.2 ER Verbs Regular. So now you have an idea of what parler looks and sounds like. Je parle, tu parles, il, elle, on parle, nous parlons, vous parlez, il, elle parle, plural. Take a moment now, pause the video, and repeat all the forms of the verb as you see them here on the screen. Okay, now let's talk more about talking. The verb parler in French means both to talk and to speak, so we use it both ways, to talk to someone, as in Hugo parle à la fille, and also with languages, as in je parle français. So here's a question for you now. Quelle langue est-ce que tu parles? What languages do you speak? I'll answer first. Je parle anglais, je parle français, je parle espagnol, et je parle un peu de portugais. Et toi? What about you? Take a moment, pause the video, and say what languages you speak. If you need to look up a language, just go to wordreference.com to find its French translation. Go ahead. So, now that we've talked about talking or speaking, what's so special about the verb parler? Well, nothing really, except that it gives us a model for how a whole group of verbs work. In fact, you already know 3 of these: aimer, adorer, and détester. You used these when you talked about la nourriture, food. And if you go back to the page of your online textbook where you found the verb parler, 2.2 ER Verbs Regular, you'll see that aimer, adorer, and détester are part of this family of verbs, along with several others. But what does this all mean? Well, it means that all these verbs end in ER in what we call the infinitive, or the unchanged form. And that then when I go to make the I form, the you form, the he or she form, and so on, the endings are always the same. So that's why je parle, j'aime, j'adore, and je déteste all end the same way with an E. It would be the same for you, tu, except that the tu form gets an S added to the end. Tu parles, tu aimes, tu adores, and tu détestes, and so on. So for all these verbs, the endings are the same, and that's the part you see in red letters in the verb parler in your online textbook. Pause a moment and look at that if you need to. But there's one more thing that we need to know about these verbs, and that is the boot. Well, what does a boot have to do with all this, you might ask? Well, it's this way. If we draw a sort of boot shape over my verb parler, the forms of the verb inside the boot all sound the same. So with parler, we say je parle, tu parles, il parle, elle parle, and for the plural form that ends in ent, il parle and elle parle. Did you notice that parle sounded exactly the same each time? I'll repeat them again. Je parle, tu parles, il parle, elle parle, and for the plural form that ends in ent, il parle and elle parle. But wait a minute, you're thinking, what about all those letters that don't get pronounced, like the S at the end of tu and the ENT at the end of il and elle? Well, those are just silent endings. We write them, but we don't say them. If you think that's weird, think about English for a minute and you'll realize it's not so different. Take a look at the word bought, for example, and ask yourself how many of those letters we actually pronounce. Enough said. But outside the boot, things are different. The nous form and the vous form get their own pronunciations. For example, nous parlons and vous parlez. So, now that we understand that, let's use some more of these verbs to ask and answer questions. Pause the video and go study the ER verbs in 2.2, ER verbs regular, the list that begins with adorer and ends with trouver. Then come back and I'll have a few questions for you. Go ahead. Okay, now you've studied your verbs, so you should be able to understand and answer the following questions. Remember that est-ce que just means I'm asking a question. So for example, if I ask you, est-ce que tu parles espagnol? You could answer either oui, je parle espagnol, or non, je ne parle pas espagnol. So, ready for the questions? Pause after each one so that you can have a chance to compose your answer. Here we go. Est-ce que tu chantes? Est-ce que tu danses? Est-ce que tu étudies beaucoup? Est-ce que tu habites à Frederick? Est-ce que tu regardes American Idol? Est-ce que tu travailles? So, were you able to answer the questions this way? I'll give a few yes answers and a few no answers so you can see both. Oui, je chante. Non, je ne danse pas. Non, je n'étudie pas beaucoup. Non, je n'habite pas à Frederick. Non, je ne regarde pas American Idol. Oui, je travaille. At this point, you're getting used to the pronoun je losing its E and becoming J apostrophe, which it does when it comes before a vowel. Same thing with ne. It loses its E too when it comes before a vowel. So that's how we get things like j'étudie beaucoup and je n'habite pas à Frederick, and so on. Bien mes amis, that's it for this segment. À la prochaine!